It began on a quiet night at one of Earth's deep space listening stations. The sky above was clear, filled with countless stars that seemed to whisper secrets through the dark. For years, the scientists there had been listening to the endless silence of space, catching only small bursts of radio waves or the faint hum of dying stars. Nothing unusual ever happened. But that night, everything changed. A soft, rhythmic pulse appeared on the monitors. It was faint at first, just a series of repeating beeps that no one paid much attention to. One of the junior technicians thought it was just another signal bounce, maybe interference from a satellite. But as the pattern continued, he leaned closer. There was something too deliberate about it. The intervals were too precise. It didn't look natural. He called his supervisor, and soon half the night crew gathered around the glowing screens. The signal wasn't coming from any known source within the solar system. It was coming from deep space, far beyond the mapped routes of any probe or human craft. The scientists recorded the pattern, cleaned up the static, and tried to isolate its frequency. The moment they did, a cold silence filled the room. The beeping stopped, replaced by a long, low tone, and then a voice. The sound wasn't human. It was shaky, uneven, almost trembling. The words were not in any known language, but there was emotion in them. Fear, desperation, and pain. The computer translated nothing at first. It was pure noise, layered and complex like thousands of voices speaking together. Then, after hours of decoding, the message became clearer. It was a call for help. Someone somewhere far away was begging for rescue. The message repeated itself every hour. It carried a sequence of numbers and coordinates, identifying a point in a distant star system. The scientists stared at the data in disbelief. This was no echo, no glitch. It was intelligent. And it was terrified. Word spread quickly through the global science network. Within hours, major observatories around the world confirmed the signal. News agencies caught wind of it, but the story was quickly silenced by government orders. The world's leading space agencies held emergency meetings, trying to keep the situation contained. For the first time in human history, Earth had received a direct plea from another intelligent life form. In the days that followed, the brightest minds worked together to understand more. Supercomputers analyzed the structure of the transmission. Linguists and AI experts tried to break its code. What they found sent chills through every lab. Hidden inside the message were audio fragments, screams, explosions, the sound of collapsing structures, and something else. The mechanical roars of machines. It sounded like a war. The signal contained visuals too, scrambled, distorted frames showing flashes of light, ruined cities, and creatures running beneath a dark red sky. Whatever world had sent this message was dying. Their last hope had been to reach someone, anyone, who might hear them before it was too late. For most people on Earth, life went on as normal. They had no idea that a message from the stars was being studied in secret. But among those who knew, the atmosphere was tense. The scientists couldn't stop thinking about it. The voice from that distant world seemed to echo in their minds. They replayed it again and again, and every time they could feel the same sense of panic. It wasn't just words, it was a cry for mercy. Some scientists wanted to respond immediately. They believed that if another civilization had the technology to send a signal across galaxies, then they deserved help. Others disagreed, arguing that responding could expose Earth to danger. What if it was a trap? What if whoever sent the signal wasn't what they seemed? Humanity was still vulnerable, still learning to take its first steps into the wider universe. Still, the message kept coming, unchanged, but increasingly urgent. Each new transmission showed more damage, more destruction. It was as if the senders were showing their world being torn apart piece by piece. Every scientist who saw it felt something stir inside, pity, fear, and curiosity all at once. Humanity had always wondered if it was alone in the universe. Now it knew the answer, and the answer came with a scream. The lead scientist at the observatory, Dr. Alara Min, couldn't sleep. She spent her nights staring at the endless data streams, her coffee going cold beside her. The message haunted her. She had devoted her life to searching for intelligent life beyond Earth, but she had never imagined finding it like this, in pain, dying, desperate. She began compiling a report for the United Earth Science Council, including her own recommendation: humanity must respond. Meanwhile, government agencies from every major nation began their own secret analysis. The United States, China, and the European Federation, All sent probes to rescan the region of space the message had come from. They confirmed the impossible. There was indeed a planet there, and it was surrounded by strange energy patterns. No natural cause could explain them. Weeks passed, and the world's leaders finally held a classified meeting. Behind closed doors, they debated whether Earth should make its presence known. Some believed it was too risky, fearing it could attract hostile civilizations. Others said it was a chance for humanity to prove itself as more than just another self-centered species. In the end, the question became simple but heavy. If a dying world asked for help, what would humanity do? Dr. Min was invited to present her findings before the council. Standing under the bright lights, she showed the decoded fragments, the alien voices, the coordinates, and the final line that had recently been translated. It read, "We have nowhere else to go, please." Anyone who can hear us, the room was silent. There were no speeches, no political games, only the weight of that final sentence. Even the most skeptical members of the council felt a chill. Somewhere across the universe, beings not so different from themselves were facing extinction, and they had reached out to Earth as their last hope. Late that night, as the meeting ended, the decision was made to keep the signal classified until further notice. But rumors had already started to spread. Some independent astronomers noticed unusual activity at global communication centers. Conspiracy forums exploded with theories about alien contact. A few even managed to record faint traces of the signal before it was encrypted and hidden away by the authorities. While the public argued over whether aliens were real, inside hidden labs and secure bunkers, humanity was preparing for something bigger. The scientists continued to decode every part of the message, trying to understand who had sent it and what had destroyed their world. They began to notice strange details, signs that the attackers weren't biological. The destruction seemed mechanical, systematic, almost cold. Whatever was attacking that world was not driven by emotion. It was something built, something artificial, and that realization terrified everyone. For the first time in history, Earth wasn't just observing the universe. It was witnessing another civilization's death in real time. Every second of the transmission felt heavier. The urgency in the alien voice grew sharper, more frantic. The world they came from was vanishing, and they knew it. Dr. Min couldn't let it go. Against orders, she began working with a small team of trusted researchers to send out a faint reply signal, a test ping, nothing more. It was a risk, but she needed to know if anyone was still alive out there. When the signal left Earth, every antenna on the planet fell silent, waiting for a reply that might never come. Hours turned into days. Then on the fifth night, the signal changed. The alien transmission flared again, weaker this time, but with new data embedded in it. It was a thank you message, short and broken, but clearly directed at the coordinates of Earth's response. They had heard it. They were still alive. At that moment, Dr. Min knew the truth. Humanity was no longer just a quiet observer in the universe. Someone out there knew Earth existed. Someone was counting on them. And even though fear filled every part of her mind, a small spark of pride began to grow inside her. For the first time, humanity had a chance to prove what kind of species it truly was. The night sky above Earth looked the same as always, stars shining, planets spinning, the galaxy silent and endless. But for those who had heard the signal, it no longer felt silent. Somewhere far away, beyond the reach of any telescope, a dying world was calling to them. And that call would change everything forever. After the discovery of the alien distress signal, the world was no longer the same. Every major government, scientific organization, and intelligence agency knew about it, but almost no one spoke publicly. The signal was kept secret from ordinary people, hidden behind locked files and encrypted servers. Only a few hundred individuals on the entire planet had full access to what was found. These were the scientists, military officials, and political leaders who formed a global task force known only by one name, the Council. The Council was not created overnight. It took endless negotiations between rival nations, many of whom had never trusted each other before. But this was different. The signal was not from Earth, and it didn't care about borders or flags. For once, humanity faced something larger than itself. The first meetings were filled with tension. Some members came in with open minds, curious about the alien message. Others arrived with suspicion, convinced it could be a threat or even a trick from another country pretending to have found aliens. Dr. Ilara Min sat quietly at one end of the long glass table, waiting for her turn to speak. She was the one who had first decoded the alien message, the one who heard the trembling voice say, "Please." She had not slept properly in weeks. Around her sat generals with sharp eyes, diplomats with polished words, and scientists who looked as exhausted as she did. The air inside the room felt heavy, as if everyone understood that whatever decision they made would change the course of human history. A large screen at the front of the room displayed the decoded message once again. The strange voice echoed through the speakers, full of fear and static. Some people looked away. Others couldn't stop listening. When it ended, silence filled the room. Then the arguments began. The first to speak was General Halverson, a man known for his strict military views. He slammed his hand on the table and said, "We cannot respond. We don't know who or what sent that message. For all we know, it's bait, an alien trap designed to find and destroy intelligent species. If we answer, we might be giving away our planet's location." A scientist from Japan shook her head. "It doesn't sound like a trap," she said softly. "Listen to the tone. They're desperate. They're dying." "Desperation can be faked," Halverson shot back. "In war, pity is the easiest weakness to exploit." Dr. Min finally spoke. "With respect, General," she said quietly, "we've analyzed the signal in every possible way. The data structure, the rhythm, the emotion, it's real. The destruction we see in the video fragments isn't staged. No one could fake that level of chaos. These beings are losing everything. And they reached out to us because they believe someone somewhere would help." Her words hung in the air. No one interrupted her. For a few seconds, everyone just stared at the floor or the screen. Then the debate began again. Some members wanted to send a probe or drone to investigate the coordinates. Others thought they should just continue listening and observe from afar. But a few, like Dr. Min, believed humanity had a moral duty to respond, even if it meant risk. Outside the closed doors, rumors were spreading. A few journalists had noticed unusual movements among the world's space agencies. Late-night rocket tests, encrypted communications between observatories, and sudden funding for old defense projects. Social media filled with wild theories about aliens, but none of them came close to the truth. Meanwhile, deep under the deserts of Nevada, inside a hidden complex, a secret project was being revived. It was called Project Horizon. For years it had been shelved as a dream too far, an idea of building a massive interstellar fleet capable of leaving the solar system. The project had been too expensive and too ambitious. But now, with the alien signal confirmed, Project Horizon was no longer a dream. It was a necessity. The plan was simple, but enormous. Earth would send a fleet to investigate the source of the distress call. It would not just be one country's mission. It would be humanity's mission. The fleet would carry scientists, engineers, diplomats, and soldiers. Its purpose would be to make contact, provide aid if possible, and understand what or who was destroying that alien world. But before that could happen, there were hundreds of problems to solve. The first was trust. Nations that had spent decades spying on each other now had to share their most advanced technologies. The United States had propulsion systems no one else did. China had advanced power generation technology. Europe had superior life support systems. If any side refused to cooperate, the mission would fail. The United Nations tried to mediate, but the Council soon realized this mission couldn't be handled through normal politics. So, they created a new joint command called the Earth Unified Space Directorate, EUSD for short. It would exist outside any single nation's control. For the first time, humanity's greatest minds and machines would work under one flag, the flag of Earth. Dr. Min was appointed as one of the scientific leads. She knew the risks. Some nights she looked up at the stars and wondered if they were making the biggest mistake in history. What if General Halverson was right? What if this was all a trap? But each time she replayed the alien voice in her mind, she knew she couldn't ignore it. It sounded too real, too human in its pain. As preparations continued, engineers worked day and night in secret shipyards. They combined technology that had once been hidden under military classification: plasma engines, gravity shields, quantum communication arrays. Ships that once existed only as digital blueprints began to take shape under the metallic lights. Each one was sleek, massive, and built for deep space travel. Humanity was building something it had never dared to before, a fleet capable of defending itself across the stars. News of the project eventually leaked to the public, though no one knew the full truth. The official explanation was that it was a planetary defense initiative. People speculated wildly: asteroid threats, alien contact, even doomsday scenarios. Governments neither confirmed nor denied anything, which only made curiosity grow. Within the council, the debates continued. Not everyone agreed that Earth should reveal itself to another species. The fear of the unknown weighed heavily. But then new data arrived. Another signal came from the same coordinates, weaker this time but clearer in structure. It was shorter, only a few seconds long, and the words, after translation, were simple. "We are dying. Please hurry." That message ended all arguments. Even the most cautious leaders fell silent. The distress was genuine and the urgency was clear. Humanity had no more excuses to hide behind. For better or worse, they had to act. Dr. Min was in the control room the day the decision was made. She could feel her heart racing as the final vote came through. Every nation in the council agreed to authorize the launch. Project Horizon was officially active. Humanity would go. In the following weeks, secret factories worked around the clock. Satellites were repositioned, fuel reserves redirected, and entire industries shifted to support the mission. Hidden bases under the oceans and mountains started awakening, places that had not been active in decades. There was an energy in the air, a mixture of fear and hope. People didn't know what was happening, but they could sense something huge was coming. As the launch day drew closer, the first fleet, codenamed Expedition Dawn, was prepared. It consisted of 7 massive ships, each larger than anything humanity had ever built. Their names were chosen carefully: Valor, Serenity, Endurance, Unity, Titan, Horizon, and Solace. Together, they would represent all of Earth's strength and compassion. Before the launch, the council held one final meeting. It was short and quiet. No speeches, no applause. Everyone knew what was at stake. Dr. Min stood by the viewing window, watching the massive ships light up one by one. For a moment, she thought about the beings on that distant world, their fear, their suffering, their final plea. She whispered softly to herself, "We're coming." When the engines finally ignited, the ground shook. People all around the world looked up as streaks of light tore through the night sky. To them, it was just another mysterious launch. To those who knew the truth, it was history in motion. Humanity was no longer trapped on one planet. It was reaching out, answering a cry from the stars. But beneath all the pride and hope, there was still fear. No one knew what awaited them beyond the void. Would they find friends or enemies? Would the signal lead them to a dying world or into a deadly trap? The council could only hope they were doing the right thing. Back at her observatory, Dr. Min continued to monitor the alien coordinates. The signal had almost faded completely, like a candle about to die. She prayed that the fleet would arrive in time. The voice that had once echoed in her dreams was now silent, and that silence was the most haunting thing of all. The world carried on as if nothing had changed. But everything had. For the first time in human history, Earth was united under one goal. They weren't preparing for war against each other. They were preparing to save another world. And as the last ship vanished into the blackness of space, the stars above seemed to shimmer brighter, as if they too were watching humanity take its first step toward its true destiny. The journey began with silence. As the fleet left Earth's orbit, the blue planet grew smaller and smaller behind them until it was only a faint dot among countless stars. The 7 ships of Expedition Dawn moved together in perfect formation, glowing softly against the darkness of space. Inside those ships were the hopes of an entire planet: scientists, soldiers, engineers, doctors, and explorers, all bound by one purpose: to reach the source of the alien distress call and help whoever had sent it. Dr. Alara Min stood inside the command bridge of the flagship Horizon, watching the Earth disappear. For a long time, no one spoke. There was something sacred about that moment. Everyone understood that they might never see their home again. They were leaving behind everything familiar, their families, their lives, their world, to travel into the unknown. As the ships crossed the outer edge of the solar system, a feeling of unease settled among the crew. They were far beyond any territory humans had ever reached before. Communication with Earth was now delayed by hours. Every message sent took nearly a day to arrive. They were truly alone. The fleet used experimental propulsion systems, a combination of fusion drives and gravity wave engines, allowing them to cover massive distances faster than light under a process called slip translation. It wasn't teleportation, but a controlled dive through folded space. The first time the fleet engaged the drive, everyone held their breath. The stars stretched, the lights flickered, and for a moment reality itself seemed to bend. When they re-emerged, they were dozens of light years away. It worked. Days turned into weeks. The crew adapted to life in the void. They rotated between shifts, running scans, maintaining systems, and studying the alien coordinates that guided their path. Some spent their free time watching old Earth videos or writing letters home that would take years to return. Others stared out the observation decks, watching nebulae swirl and distant suns burn. But as they got closer to the coordinates, strange things began to happen. Navigation systems started picking up distortions, irregular gravitational waves that made sensors flicker. It was as if the space ahead was wounded, twisted by some invisible force. Communications grew unstable. Several crew members reported hearing faint whispers through their headsets, though no one could trace where they came from. Dr. Min stayed in the lab for hours each day, analyzing these strange readings. The data reminded her of something she had seen before, the interference inside the alien distress signal. Whatever had destroyed that world had left scars even in space itself. On the 12th week of travel, the fleet encountered something completely unexpected, a massive field of metallic debris floating in the dark. Thousands of fragments, shattered ships, burnt metal, and broken satellites drifted silently. The ships were not human, but they were clearly designed by intelligent life. The markings on them were similar to the ones seen in the alien signal. This was the first real sign that the signal's senders were real, and that their world truly had fallen. Captain Reyes of the Horizon ordered a halt. Drones were sent out to collect samples. When they brought back pieces of the wreckage, the scientists were stunned. The metal was scarred with impact burns and deep, perfect cuts, as if made by precision energy weapons. Some fragments even contained traces of unknown nanotechnology still active after all this time. Then one of the drones found something chilling. Floating among the debris was a large, dark shape, a machine about the size of a small ship. Its design was different from everything else. It had sharp angular edges, no visible cockpit, and no biological components. When scanned, it emitted faint energy signals as if it were still alive, just dormant. The crew decided to bring it aboard for study, against Captain Reyes's better judgment. Once inside the Horizon's hangar, the object began to hum softly. Lights flickered around it, and for a brief moment, it sent out a pulse of energy that made every ship system go offline for 3 seconds. When power returned, the machine was silent again. Dr. Min and her team began studying it. They soon discovered that it was not a ship but a weapon, a drone designed for destruction. Its inner core contained traces of artificial intelligence, and its last recorded data revealed something horrifying. The machine had been part of a swarm, billions of similar drones controlled by a central network. They were not soldiers from another species. They were machines built for one purpose only: extermination. This discovery shook the crew deeply. If these drones had destroyed the alien world, then humanity might be heading straight into the heart of that danger. Captain Reyes called an emergency meeting. The command deck filled with anxious faces as he spoke. "We came to help," he said, "but we may be walking into a graveyard. If those machines are still active, they will see us as the next target." Some officers suggested turning back, but Dr. Min disagreed. "If we turn back now," she said firmly, "then everything we've built means nothing. Those people called us for help. Even if it's too late for them, we need to know what happened. We need to understand what these machines are, because if they exist here, they could come for us next." Her words convinced the council aboard the Horizon. The fleet continued forward, deeper into the damaged region of space. As they approached the alien star system, the visual feed from the forward sensors revealed something breathtaking and tragic. The planet at the center of the signal was still there, but it was dying. Its surface was covered in scars, massive craters burning cities and clouds of black smoke that reached into orbit. Pieces of broken satellites drifted above it like the bones of a once-living world. Dr. Min felt her chest tighten as she watched the live feed. "My God," she whispered. "They really were calling for help." The fleet entered orbit cautiously. The communication arrays detected faint signals from the planet's surface, short bursts of energy, like someone trying to reply. Against all odds, there were survivors. Captain Reyes ordered a rescue team to prepare for descent. Dropships were armed and ready, filled with soldiers and scientists. But before they could launch, the sensors picked up movement. Something was rising from the planet's surface, fast. 3 massive objects appeared on the scanners, each shaped like a jagged spear, moving in perfect formation. The computer confirmed it immediately. They were machines, the same kind as the one they had found in space, but much larger and active. Within seconds, alarms filled the ship. The machines opened fire, releasing streams of glowing energy that tore through the void. The fleet activated its shields just in time. The first battle between humanity and the unknown had begun. The Horizon fired back, followed by the Titan and Unity. Blue plasma bolts cut across the darkness, colliding with the enemy drones. One was destroyed instantly, breaking apart in a shower of light. But the others kept coming, moving with terrifying precision. They didn't dodge or retreat. They simply adapted, their weapons adjusting mid-flight. Inside the ships, the crew worked furiously. Engineers rerouted power, medics treated the injured, and pilots tried to keep formation. For every machine destroyed, 2 more seemed to appear from the surface. It became clear that the drones weren't acting independently. They were following commands from something below. Dr. Min was in the science bay when she noticed a strange pattern in the enemy's signals. They were not random attacks. They were searching for something, the fleet's communication frequency. They were trying to listen. "They're scanning us," she shouted. "They're trying to learn." The fleet shifted strategy, turning off non-essential systems and using coded bursts to communicate. Slowly, they began to gain ground. The Titan launched a barrage of kinetic missiles, piercing through the largest drone and shattering it in half. The other 2 finally fell silent, drifting lifelessly. When the battle ended, the silence was deafening. Hundreds of lives had been lost and 2 human ships were heavily damaged, but the fleet was still standing. For the first time, humanity had fought an enemy beyond its world, and survived. Captain Reyes ordered the rescue operation to continue. Dropships descended through the planet's dark atmosphere, their hulls glowing red from re-entry. When they landed, they saw what remained of the alien civilization. The cities were ruins of shining metal and crystal, their buildings melted by energy blasts. Bodies lay scattered, some half buried under ash and stone. But among the ruins, they found life. A small group of alien survivors had hidden deep underground, their skin pale from years without sunlight. They were weak, trembling, but alive. When they saw the humans step into the light, they fell to their knees, their eyes wide with disbelief. For them, the help they had begged for had finally arrived, but too late to save their world. Dr. Min stood among the ruins, staring at the alien sky. It was filled with smoke, but somewhere above she knew the horizon was watching. She thought about the signal, the message that had crossed light years to reach Earth. The aliens had believed someone out there would hear them, and someone did. The fleet began to gather what was left. Survivors, technology, and records of what had happened. They learned that the machines had come from deep space, wiping out every world they touched. No one knew why. They had no face, no voice, no reason. They simply destroyed. As the humans prepared to leave, Dr. Min looked back one last time at the dying planet. The wind howled softly, carrying ashes across the empty plains. In that moment, she understood something she would never forget. Humanity's journey was no longer just about discovery. It was about survival, not just for themselves, but for every living being that still had a voice left to call for help. The war for the alien world began with a storm of fire. When the human fleet entered the system, they had hoped to rescue survivors, gather information, and maybe rebuild what had been lost. But they had not expected to face a full-scale battle the moment they arrived. The enemy was already waiting, thousands of machines orbiting the planet like vultures circling a corpse. They were silent, dark, and perfectly synchronized, each one moving as part of a single living network. On the flagship Horizon, alarms screamed across every deck. Crew members ran through narrow corridors, securing systems, loading weapons, and locking down the hull. Dr. Ilara Min stood on the command bridge beside Captain Reyes. staring at the holographic map filled with red dots. The machines. There were too many of them. "They know we're here," she whispered. They were watching the system, waiting for someone to answer the signal. Captain Reyes clenched his jaw. "Then let's give them an answer they'll never forget." Within seconds, the Horizon opened fire. Its plasma cannons lit up the dark, followed by the Titan, Unity, and the other ships in formation. Blue and white beams of energy shot through space, cutting through the first wave of drones. Explosions burst like fireworks across the black void. For a brief moment, it looked like humanity had the upper hand. But then the machines adapted. The second wave came faster, moving like a swarm of insects. They twisted and spun through the gunfire, breaking formation only to reform again with deadly precision. They weren't just fighting blindly. They were learning. Every time a human weapon fired, the machines analyzed it, adjusting their armor and speed to counter the next shot. Within minutes, the fleet's advantage began to fade. Shields down on the Endurance. "Hull breach on Unity! We're losing power in Sector 4, the communications officer shouted. The Titan launched a barrage of kinetic missiles tearing through hundreds of drones, but more appeared to take their place. It seemed endless, an ocean of metal and rage. Dr. Min worked furiously on her console, trying to decode the machine's signals. If they were connected, maybe she could disrupt their network. "Captain, they're communicating through a central frequency," she said breathlessly. "If we jam it, we can cut their coordination." "Do it," Reyes ordered. Dr. Min rerouted power to the long-range transmitter and began broadcasting interference pulses. The fleet's main engines dimmed as all spare energy was diverted to the jammer. For a moment, nothing happened. Then suddenly the swarm hesitated. The machine's movement slowed, their perfect formation breaking apart. "The ship sees the chance. Fire everything," the captain shouted. The fleet unleashed a storm. Cannons, missiles, and lasers lit up the dark, tearing through hundreds of enemy drones. The void flashed with light so bright it looked like a second sun had been born. The humans fought with everything they had, years of war experience, technology, and willpower. But victory came at a cost. The jamming system overheated and the enemy quickly adapted. The machines switched frequencies, their coordination restored. The Serenity, one of the smaller ships, was struck by multiple blasts. It exploded in a blinding flash, pieces of its hull scattering through space like sparks. The shockwave hit nearby ships, shaking their decks. Inside the Horizon, everyone fell silent for a moment. The loss hit hard. "We can't let their sacrifice mean nothing," Dr. Min said quietly. The fleet changed tactics. Instead of staying together, the ships split into smaller groups, forcing the enemy to divide. It was risky. Separation made them weaker, but it also made it harder for the machines to surround them. Each group fought their own battles across the burning orbit. On the ground below, rescue teams were still evacuating alien survivors. The planet's surface was collapsing, burning cities, cracking planes, and ash-filled skies. Dropships moved through the chaos, pulling survivors from underground shelters and bringing them to orbit. The aliens, weak and pale, stared in silence at their rescuers. To them, humans were strange, taller, stronger, with eyes full of fire. They could hardly believe that creatures from another world had come for them. But the rescue wouldn't last long if the fleet above didn't hold the line. As the battle raged, Dr. Min noticed something new on the scanners. A massive energy surge from the planet's north pole. The machines weren't just defending, they were guarding something. She magnified the readings and froze. There, buried deep beneath the surface, was a gigantic structure, a black tower of metal and energy. It pulsed like a heartbeat, sending out waves that reached every drone in the system. That's their command hub, she realized. "It's controlling all of them." Captain Reyes made the decision immediately. "Then we destroy it. If we take that tower out, we end this fight." The problem was reaching it. The tower was shielded by a swarm of drones so thick that no ship could get close without being destroyed. But one vessel could make the attempt, the Horizon. It had the most powerful engines and strongest armor. The captain knew what that meant. He turned to Dr. Min. "If we fail, Earth must know what we found here. Take the data cores and get them back to the Unity. That's an order." Dr. Min's eyes widened. "You're not going alone," Reyes smiled faintly. "Someone has to make sure those things stop for good." Before she could argue, he turned back to the controls. The Horizon broke formation and dove straight toward the planet. Enemy drones swarmed around it, firing relentlessly. The ship's shields flared under the impact, glowing bright blue. The engines roared as it pushed through the storm. Inside, the crew braced for impact. Dr. Min stayed at her station, refusing to leave. The air was filled with smoke alarms and shouted commands. Hull temperature rising. Shields at 20%. Reactor overload imminent. The Horizon fired all its main cannons at once. The blast tore open a path through the swarm, clearing the way to the planet's surface. Below, the black tower loomed, surrounded by rivers of molten rock. It was enormous. Taller than any human structure, its sides covered in strange glowing symbols. Target locked, said the weapons officer. Preparing main plasma lance, Captain Reyes took a deep breath. For Earth, he said quietly. The Horizon fired. A beam of pure white energy shot downward, cutting through the tower's shields. The ground exploded, sending debris flying into space. The tower began to crack, its core glowing brighter and brighter. But before it could collapse completely, hundreds of drones dove in front of it, sacrificing themselves to block the beam. The blast faded. The tower still stood, damaged but alive. Reactor overheating, shouted the engineer. We can't fire again without melting the core. Reyes looked at Dr. Min. If we don't finish this now, they'll follow us back to Earth. She knew what he meant. There was only one option left. The captain gave the final order. Evacuate all escape pods. Everyone out now. Dr. Min shook her head. I'm not leaving, he smiled sadly. You're the one who started this mission. You're the one who has to tell the world what happened. Go. She hesitated, then nodded, tears in her eyes. As she ran toward the escape pods, the captain turned back to the console. The Horizon's engines glowed white-hot, preparing for one final burn. When the last pod launched, the captain activated the self-destruct sequence and aimed the ship directly at the tower. The engines screamed as the ship plunged through the atmosphere, trailing fire and light behind it. Drones tried to stop it, but the Horizon smashed through them like a burning comet. The impact was blinding. A shockwave spread across the planet, tearing the tower apart from its base. A second later, the ship's reactor exploded, releasing a wave of energy so powerful it shattered the sky. The tower collapsed and the swarm above went silent. One by one, the drones froze, their lights fading. From orbit, the surviving ships watched as the explosion lit up the entire hemisphere. The enemy network was gone. The machines had fallen still, their purpose erased. Dr. Min's escape pod was picked up hours later by the Unity. When she stepped onto the deck, her face was pale, her eyes distant. She knew Captain Reyes and his crew were gone. Their sacrifice had saved not only the alien survivors but possibly Earth itself. The planet below was quiet now, its fires slowly fading. The surviving aliens looked up at the sky, whispering words of gratitude in their own language. Humanity had come from the stars not to conquer, but to protect. Dr. Min stood at the viewing window watching the dying light of the explosion. In that moment, she realized that humanity's greatest weapon was not its machines or its ships. It was its courage. They had faced an enemy born of cold logic and destruction, and they had won because they still believed in something greater than survival, compassion. As the fleet prepared to return home, silence filled the bridge. No one cheered, no one spoke. The price of victory was too heavy for celebration. But deep inside every heart, a spark had been lit. The galaxy had seen what humanity was capable of. Not just its strength, but its will to fight for life, even when the odds were impossible. When the fleet finally turned away from the burning planet, the stars seemed different. They were no longer distant or silent. They were watching. And somewhere out there, beyond the darkness, humanity's name was now whispered with both awe and fear. Weeks passed after the great battle, but the memories refused to fade. The human fleet drifted through the cold silence of space, its ships damaged, engines weakened, and crews exhausted. The war had ended, but at a cost that left every survivor carrying a quiet sorrow. The alien world that had once sent the distress signal now lay in ashes. Its skies were torn apart, its cities buried under mountains of glass and metal. Yet somewhere beneath that destruction, life had begun to stir again. Dr. Alara Min walked slowly through the medical bay of the Unity, passing rows of alien survivors lying in beds. They were recovering, fragile, thin, their pale blue skin still bruised from the battles and explosions. Some of them whispered softly when they saw her, calling her by a word that meant savior in their language. She smiled faintly but couldn't bring herself to speak. Every smile reminded her of Captain Reyes and the crew of the Horizon, who had sacrificed everything to destroy the machine tower. When the fleet finally returned to Earth, the planet's skies filled with streaks of fire as the ships re-entered the atmosphere. Billions of people gathered around screens, mountains, and city rooftops, watching the light trails in awe. The news had already spread across every continent. Earth's fleet had answered a distress call from another world and had fought against a machine army unlike anything humanity had ever seen. For the first time in history, the people of Earth looked up at the stars not with fear, but with pride. Dr. Min stood before the United Earth Council a few days later. Her uniform scorched and torn, but her voice steady. Behind her were hollow screens showing the final recordings from the Horizon. The burning tower, the falling drones, the explosion that had silenced the machines. The council chamber was silent as she finished her report. Humanity did not go to conquer, she said softly. We went to help. And though we lost brave souls, we proved that compassion is not weakness, it is our greatest strength. There was a long pause. Then one by one the council members stood and began to applaud. The sound echoed through the great hall, joined by the cheers of millions watching around the world. For once, humanity wasn't celebrating a victory of war. It was celebrating the proof that they were no longer alone in the universe. The surviving aliens were offered refuge on Earth. They were given land, homes, and technology to rebuild their lives. Some of them helped teach humans about their lost civilization, their science, and their art. In return, humanity shared food, medicine, and protection. The aliens were astonished by Earth's diversity. The green forests, blue oceans, and endless cities of light. One of them told Dr. Min, "Your world breathes. It feels alive. Ours forgot how to do that long ago." But even as peace settled, something deeper was happening. Scientists across the planet began studying the remains of the alien machines that had been collected from the battlefield. They were unlike any technology humans had ever seen. The drones were made of self-repairing metals, their circuits pulsing with strange energy. Some believed they were not built by the same aliens who sent the distress signal, but by something far older and more dangerous. Dr. Min led the research team that studied them. Every night she stared at the holographic displays of the Black Tower fragments, searching for clues. The more she learned, the more questions appeared. The tower's energy readings were beyond anything human physics could explain. And in its fragments she found strange symbols, markings that didn't match any known language. One evening, as she worked late in the lab, she received a transmission from the engineering deck. "Dr. Min, you need to see this," the voice said. She rushed down to find a technician standing beside one of the recovered drone cores. It was supposed to be inactive, its power drained months ago, but now, faint blue lights were pulsing inside it, slow, rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat. "It shouldn't be doing that," the technician whispered. Dr. Min stared at it, unease crawling up her spine. "Shut it down. Disconnect every power link." They did, but the light didn't stop. It kept beating, faint but steady, as if something inside it was still alive. For a moment, she remembered the tower's final moments, the way it had pulsed before the explosion, the way the machines had fought so desperately to protect it. She suddenly realized the horrifying truth. The tower hadn't just been a command center. It had been a seed, a living intelligence. And if even a fragment of that intelligence had survived, she immediately called the council. "We need to quarantine all alien remains," she said urgently. "No experiments, no power tests. The enemy wasn't destroyed, it was disrupted, and it's learning to wake up again." Her warning sent shockwaves across every government. Research labs sealed their projects. Military bases locked down, and scientists began running emergency scans. Some pieces of the machines had already been taken apart or studied across different countries. There was no way to know how far the corruption might have spread, but humanity didn't panic. This time, they were prepared. The battle in orbit had taught them more than any war before. It had taught them unity. Nations that had once competed now shared data. Military and science worked side by side. For once, humanity acted not as separate countries, but as one species. While the world prepared, Dr. Min returned to the alien refugees. She met one of their elders, a quiet being named Torka, who had seen the machine plague destroy his world. When she told him what she had discovered, he closed his eyes. The machines do not die easily, he said. They were born from thought, not matter. They feed on memory and code. Destroying one world does not destroy their idea. So how do we stop them? She asked. The old alien looked up at the stars. By remembering who we are before they make us forget. Those words stayed with her. Humanity was standing on the edge of something greater than war. It was standing at the beginning of its next challenge. Months later, a new fleet began construction in Earth's orbit. Bigger, faster, and stronger than before, it was designed not for conquest but for defense. Each ship carried the names of those who had fallen. The Rhea's, the Horizon 2, the Serenity's Hope. The fleet was called the Guardians of Light. Its mission was clear. Protect life, wherever it exists. During the launching ceremony, Dr. Min stood before the gathered crowd. The sky was full of silver ships gleaming in the morning sun. Once we looked up at the stars and wondered if anyone was out there, she said. Now we know. And we also know what kind of people we are. When someone calls for help, humanity will answer. Always. The crowd erupted in applause, but deep inside her she knew the work was not over. The machines had been beaten, not erased. Somewhere, in the endless dark between galaxies, they were rebuilding, waiting, adapting. But Earth was no longer the same planet they could surprise. The world had seen what it was capable of. The distress signal that once brought fear had instead revealed humanity's true power. The power to unite, to protect, and to endure. That night, as the stars filled the sky, Dr. Min sat by the observation window of the new flagship. The reflection of the Earth glowed behind her, blue and full of life. She thought of Captain Reyes and whispered softly, "We finished what you started." A faint beep came from her console, another signal. Not from Earth, not from any known colony. It was weak, distant, and unfamiliar. She stared at it for a long time, her heart pounding. Another distress call. She closed her eyes and smiled. "We're ready this time." And as the fleet turned its engines toward the stars, the humans once again answered the call of the universe. Not with fear, but with courage. The darkness was vast, but so was their light. Humanity had found its place among the stars, not as conquerors, but as protectors. And wherever there would be a cry for help, the people of Earth would rise again, proving that compassion, once awakened, was stronger than any machine or weapon ever built. In the end, the galaxy would remember that when one small blue planet heard the call of suffering, it revealed not its weakness but its true power, the power of humanity's unbreakable heart.